10 spine-chilling Alaskan horror stories exposed. Unexplained terrors and cursed secrets revealed. In the shadowy depths of Ketchikan, Alaska, the frigid winds howl like lost souls outside Sarah's small, worn-down house. In the biting cold, she struggles to balance her job as a waitress in a diner with the responsibilities of a single mother to her 2 small children. Each day feels like a Herculean feat, a dance of survival against the backdrop of ominous, whispering woods that encircle the town. But something sinister lurks in those trees, something that is slowly tightening its grip on Sarah and her family. Her son, Jake, aged just 6, begins to babble about a figure he calls the man in the woods. At first, she foolishly laughs it off, chiding him for his wild imagination. But late-night whispers in the dark send chills racing down her spine. Around the diner, strange conversations swirl like the coffee she serves. Hushed tones speak of families who once thrived in Ketchikan, only to vanish as if they were nothing more than shadows themselves. With each new day, Sarah feels the entangled roots of fear growing deeper beneath the town's quaint facade, feeding off its long-buried secrets. The darkness that threatens to consume them all as the winter deepens. Her routine, once a fragile comfort, now feels precarious. The menacing sounds that pierce the stillness of night escalate, rustling outside her window. Dragging noises prowling the roof, the dread settles in her gut. One night, she stirs in her sleep, certainty that she glimpsed eyes peering at her from the trees outside, glowing faintly through the frost-kissed glass. "Mommy, he told me to come play," Jake murmurs, a night terror that has begun to twist her mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A growing desperation drives Sarah deeper into Ketchikan's tangled past. Eerie legends shared over stale coffee and grilled salmon taunt her. The walls of the diner feel like they're closing in, suffocating her with whispers of warnings: stay indoors. They say, for the woods are hungry. One day, against her better judgment, she overhears a tale about a man who lured children into the forests, promises of play dancing across their innocent faces. But hideous truths lurk beneath the mundane. The very legends imbue a corrupt power veiled by time and silence. Then it happens: Jake vanishes, leaving behind only the chilling words fingering her heart. He took me to play. Panic surges through Sarah like ice water. She races into the dark abyss, desperate to find her son, driven by the fire of love and the choking grip of terror. The thick trees lean closer, shadows seem to reach for her, urging her on. Every snap of a twig and fluttering of branches send her heart racing. Darkness swallows her whole. What twisted threads have bound Ketchikan and its children to the man in the woods? As the relentless chill bites deeper, time starts to slip. The final moment settles in her gut. Sarah presses on, wind at her back, knowing only that she must unravel the terrifying truth before her world unravels completely. The forest's breath was cold, each gust weaving through Sarah's hair like fingers grasping for her sanity. Trees towered like dark sentinels as she plunged deeper, heart pounding like a caged bird desperate to escape. Every instinct screamed for her to turn back, but she couldn't. Jake needed her. She felt his presence, a tether pulling her through the shadows, and the chilling words echoed. He took me to play. Jake's laughter had always filled the house, a symphony of innocence. Now, it felt like a distant memory, shattered by the creeping dread that clawed at her insides. The air thickened, weighing her down, as if the very woods were warning her to stop. A crack echoed behind her, sharp and deliberate, shattering the stillness. She froze, breath hitching in her throat. "Jake?" The mere whisper was swallowed by the darkness. The haunting silence was soon filled with whispers, flickering like flames in a windstorm. "Come play," they called, distant and alluring. Panic surged in waves as Sarah remembered the stories of the man in the woods. Tales spun out of remorse and fear. Children who followed whispered invitations, never to return. She gritted her teeth and pressed on. A muted glow flickered ahead, casting distorted shadows that danced like phantoms. Was it Jake? A flicker of hope ignited, driving her feet forward, each step heavier than the last. Branches scratched at her arms, and the cold seeped into her bones. But she pushed through. "Jake!" she cried again, louder this time, her voice trembling with fear and desperation. No reply came, just the rustle of leaves, mocking her. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath her feet, and Sarah stumbled, grabbing a nearby tree for support. Her fingers brushed against something oily and warm. Reeling back, she looked down to see a trail of crimson staining the snow. It led deeper into the darkness, and her heart sank. This was no game. Her instincts screamed at her to turn back, that this was exactly the trap the stories had warned her about. But the thought of Jake alone, scared, filled her with rage. She pushed forward, fighting against the rising panic, each crunch of snow beneath her boots echoing like a drumbeat, preparing her for an uncertain fate. As the trees parted, she stumbled into a clearing, breath hitching at the sight before her. In the center, a figure crouched low, shrouded in shadows. A hunched back that radiated unnaturalness. It drew nearer, and there, just beyond, the unmistakable sight of her son, pale and still, lifeless in the grip of the unearthly darkness. "Jake!" she screamed again, raw and full of agony, reaching for him. The figure turned, revealing hollow eyes that glowed like embers, a cruel smile splitting a face that should not exist. Time froze as the dread enveloped her. Everything felt surreal, twisted. She saw Jake's eyes flicker open, but they were not the familiar warm brown. They were void, like staring into the vast cold of the Anchorage night sky. "Mommy, he wants to play," Jake whispered, his voice different, echoing with something older, darker. Terror clamped around Sarah like iron chains. She was losing him. In that moment, as the icy tendrils of despair curled around her heart, she understood the horrible truth. The man in the woods had not only taken her son. He was feeding on the very essence of innocence. "Please, Jake, fight it," she cried as the figure drew closer, stretching out a crooked hand. What kind of creature had twisted her child into this thing? But Jake merely stared into the abyss, the flicker of recognition fading. There was no fight left in him. Desperation surged, propelling Sarah forward, but as she reached for her son, the ground shifted beneath her, swallowing her into darkness. With a final shriek, the world went black. Where was Jake? Was he truly lost now to the man who roamed the shadows? As Sarah lingered in the void, the truth hit her harder than any winter chill. She might have only just begun to uncover the depth of horror pulsing through Ketchikan. What other secrets did the woods hold? And would she pay the ultimate price to find out? The coldness wrapped around Sarah like a shroud, heavy and suffocating. She couldn't see, couldn't feel the tangible weight of her body. She was lost in a void of shadows. But the voice, Jake's voice, it called to her from somewhere, a thread pulling her toward a haunting melody that twisted and turned in her mind. "Mommy," it echoed, distant but achingly familiar, drawing her back. She fought against the dark, against the overwhelming despair that threatened to consume her more than the enigma that surrounded her. Suddenly, she felt solid ground beneath her feet. Her heart raced as she blinked against the almost ethereal darkness, trying to center herself. Where was she? The landscape shifted. She was no longer in the clearing. Instead, she stood in what looked like an abandoned playground, rusted swings swaying slowly as though moved by invisible hands. The air was thick with dust and decay, creeping vines curling around forgotten slides. It felt wrong, as if the laughter of children had died, replaced by an eerie stillness that echoed with unfulfilled joy. "Jake?" she called again, her voice wavering, tangled with hopelessness. The silence was oppressive, but the whispers returned. They slithered around her, full of promise and hope. Come play with us, they lured. Seductive in their insistence, memories flooded her mind, the warmth of her son's laughter, the softness of his little hands. This was a trick, she thought, a trap laid by the dark figure, weaving through the shadows to ensnare her heart. With each passing moment, doubt consumed her. She had failed him. Ahead, silhouetted in the gloom, she saw a figure. It was small, hunched, familiar. Her breath hitched, and she rushed forward, heart pounding. Jake! But as she got closer, an unsettling truth crept in. The figure trembled. Shapeless shadows flickered around it, and it turned slightly, revealing an empty face coated in darkness. It was as if Jake was trapped within a shell that did not fit him, a puppet without strings. Mommy, the voice chimed again, softer now, as if swallowed by the very shadows surrounding them. No, please. This isn't you. Sarah screamed, anguish lacing her words. She reached for him, her palms sweating with fervor as she fought against the weight of the darkness. The playground shifted around her, swings creaking more loudly, a cacophony rising. Playtime is fun, the whisper slithered through the air, thickening with malice. Join us. From the corners of her vision, shadows danced, children, all the lost souls entangled in the web of despair. Their eyes glimmered with a hunger that sent chills racing down her spine. And then she saw it, the figure, the man from the woods, watching, waiting, festering in the shadows, an insatiable hunger lingering in his hollow gaze. Not him. Not my son. She plunged forward, determination reigniting the fire within her. The shadows recoiled as she pressed on, driven by the love of a mother refusing to let go. With each step, her resolve burned brighter. But the darkness was relentless, choking her hope. The laughter of the children, tinged with malice, echoed around her, becoming a whirlwind of taunts. Come play forever. It will be fun. Just as Sarah reached out to Jake once more, the ground shuddered, yanking her back. She stumbled as the laughter erupted into a deafening roar, drowning out her cries. In one last desperate push, she grasped at the essence of their bond, a frayed but impossibly strong thread, her heart screaming for all the mothers and fathers who fought in shadows, who lost what was dear. As she lunged, the world exploded into blinding brightness, pain lacing through her veins. What the light revealed sent questions swirling in her mind, patterns of darkness and light battling for supremacy. Mommy! Came the voice again, this time powerful, but it wasn't from Jake. It was the man. A grating laughter twisted into her thoughts. You thought you could win? In that moment, the threads of shadows coiled around her, and Sarah could only scream as reality splintered, sending her careening down a dark path, with the echoes of laughter and her son's fading voice fading behind her. What price must she pay to reclaim Jake? And what would she confront in the heart of the darkness that lingered where innocence once thrived? The blinding light faded to an unsettling twilight, a thin veil that shimmered in and out of focus. Sarah gasped for air and fell to her knees. The ground cracked beneath her like a dry lake bed. Each breath felt jagged, filled with the dust of the playground and the memories it held. Around her, shadows twisted and danced menacingly. Had she escaped the man? The chilling laughter echoed in her mind, a malicious reminder of her failure. What had he done to Jake? Mommy? Came the voice again, but something was off. It was sharper, filled with an urgency that prickled her skin. She looked toward the sound, her heart pounding in anticipation. Shapes emerged from the dark, not just children, but figures cloaked in shadow. Come play with us, Mommy. They sang, a chorus of contrived innocence wrapped in sinister tones. Each face a reflection of what once was a childhood lost, a happiness stolen. Get away from me, Sarah shouted, her voice breaking. She clutched the ground, grounding herself against the overwhelming despair that surged toward her like a tidal wave. This was all a nightmare, a trick her mind had played, but the agony was strikingly real. But then she saw it, the flicker in the shadows, a flash of color that should not belong. A red shirt, faded and torn, hanging on a small frame. Jake's shirt. Jake! She cried again, her fear transforming into a fierce desperation. She scrambled to her feet and sprinted toward the flickering image, her heart racing until it threatened to explode. Branches scraped at her arms as she pushed through the shadows. "Mommy!" The voice called again, clearer now, cutting through the chaos with hope. She couldn't stop herself even as the whispers grew louder, urging her to turn back, to surrender to the dark. The playground began to collapse around her, the swings falling like broken limbs, the laughter fading into a mirthless mockery. With that swirling vortex of darkness closing in, she pushed herself harder. Jake was there. He had to be. As she ran, she saw the shadowy figure looming again, his laughter reverberating through the air and wrapping around her like chains. "Your heart is so full of love. It's so delicious," he taunted, his eyes glinting with malice. "Stay away from him," she screamed, lunging forward. The figure stepped into her path, a dark wall blocking her way. His smile stretched unnaturally, a gaping chasm that promised only darkness. Suddenly, the shadows morphed, swirling violently as the figure's laughter crescendoed into howls. "You think you'll reclaim what was lost? No, no one escapes me." The playground twisted and warped, transforming into a grotesque labyrinth of echoes and despair, her memories tangling with her fears. Each turn disoriented her, and visions of her son slipped through her fingers like sand. But then, from the corners of her memory, a flicker of light pierced through the darkness, a memory of Jake's laughter. Untainted, innocent. It sparked something within her, igniting a flame she thought extinguished. "Mommy!" The voice cried again, stronger now, filled with the innocence she longed to protect. Mustering every ounce of strength, she broke free, hurtling forward into the shades of torment. "Jake!" she howled, weaving through the maze, until a hand reached out from the shadows, grasping hers, pulling her into the light. The face belonged to a child, but not Jake, a girl with wild hair and wise eyes that spoke of forgotten joys and lingering sadness. "Come," she said, urgency bleeding through her soft voice. "We need to find him before it's too late." Sarah's heart raced anew. What did the girl know? What was the dark man planning? "Where's Jake?" Sarah breathed, terror striking her down. "Time is running out," the girl replied, tugging insistently. "We have to go, before he comes back." The darkness swarmed around them, buzzing with rage and hunger. Would they make it in time? In this realm where shadows feasted on fear, the stakes grew deadly. With each hurried step, Sarah found herself teetering at the brink once more. Could she trust this child? Was she a savior or an illusion crafted from the dark? And as they fled, the laughter followed. They were not alone. Would the darkness consume them both? There was no turning back now. With fear clawing at her throat, Sarah raced toward an uncertain fate, desperate to reclaim what was unjustly taken. What horrors awaited in the shadowy depths? The answer loomed closer with every heartbeat. The girl pulled Sarah deeper into the shadows, the darkness closing in like a suffocating blanket. Each hurried step fueled her heart's frantic rhythm, pounding against her ribcage as if it sought a way to escape. The laughter echoed behind them, darker, more unnerving, urging them to slow, to give in. "Why are they laughing?" Sarah gasped, breathless. The scent of damp earth mixed with the faintest trace of something rotten, wrapping around her like invisible chains. The girl didn't answer. Her eyes flickered with an urgency that spoke volumes. Words caught in her throat. They rounded a corner that seemed to stretch endlessly, walls of black twisting and warping, and for a heartbeat, Sarah thought she saw a glimpse of light ahead. She quickened her pace, hope igniting just for a moment. But the laughter followed, now shrill, taking on a life of its own, as if it were a living entity hungry for their fear. Suddenly, they came to a halt. The girl's tiny hand gripped Sarah's wrist, stony and unyielding, forcing her to stop. "This is where we cross," she murmured, looking down a narrow break in the shadows. The air felt thick, like stepping into water, an oppressive weight pressing down. "Cross? To where?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper, the fear in her gut twisting tighter. "To the other side. There's a way to find him. I promise." The girl's eyes shone with an intensity that slipped through the cracks of despair that threatened to consume Sarah. What if it's a trap? She stammered, glancing back at the shadows slithering over the ground as though they were alive. The laughter grew louder, mocking her uncertainty. It's not. It's our only chance. The girl's voice cut through the din, determined, fierce. And for a split second, the shadows paused, as if considering her command. Okay, Sarah replied, her voice trembling as resolve surged through her. Show me. The girl led the way, her small frame slipping through the narrow crevice. Each step deeper into the maze brought a chill that worked its way through Sarah's bones. The laughter faded briefly, a brief reprieve that hung in the air, thick with tension. They emerged into what felt like an open space, and Sarah gasped. Ghostly figures flickered in and out of existence around her children trapped in despair, the echoes of their laughter replaced by cries of anguish. It was a playground of shadows, twisted memories longing for release. Jake! Sarah shouted, the name tearing from her throat in desperate urgency. She scanned the faces, looking for her son among the lost. Not here, the girl whispered, a deep sadness lacing her words. He has been taken. We need to find his light. His light? The shadows stirred ominously at her utterance. What do you mean? He is different. He was special. They can't keep him for long. Her voice trailed off, eyes fixed on something far beyond the flickering shadows. Suddenly, the dark man emerged from the depths, his figure materializing with a chilling, predatory grace. His laughter rang out, sinister and echoing for eternity. Ah, little shadows, he mocked, you think you can escape? The girl's grip tightened on Sarah's hand. We have to move now. Panic surged through Sarah, urging her limbs to act. Together, they sprinted, dodging the grasping shadows that lunged at them, yearning to tighten their hold. But the man followed, his growling laughter wrapping around her like barbed wire. You can't outrun your fears. As they stumbled through the chaos, Sarah felt the familiar pull of her motherly instincts rise. Where was the light? Where was Jake? The question plunged her into despair, mingled with racing hope. But then, they reached a clearing filled with flickering lights, tiny orbs floating, illuminating the darkness like fireflies. The girl pointed. There, that's where we find him. The lights pulsed like a heartbeat, calling to Sarah. She could almost taste the sweetness of hope on the air. Jake! She cried again, desperation rising. I'm coming. But just then, the ground trembled, and the laughter roared with fury. Shadows surged, a tidal wave threatening to engulf them. Go! The girl shouted, pushing Sarah toward the lights with strength beyond her size. I'll hold them off. No, I want to leave you. Sarah screamed, torn between saving herself and protecting this mysterious child. Go! The girl insisted, fear and determination etched on her features. The shadows writhed around them, and with a heavy heart, Sarah plunged into the flickering lights, venturing where she dared not know the outcome as she crossed the threshold. A blinding surge of warmth flooded over her. The laughter faded to a whisper, but the shadows stirred behind her, ready to follow. She turned just in time to see the girl being swallowed whole, her cries lost in the cacophony of despair. Terror gripped Sarah's heart, but hope ignited anew. She took a deep breath and moved forward, drawn by the promise of light. What lay ahead remained uncertain, and the shadows were never far behind. Would she find Jake before it was too late? Or had she sacrificed too much already? The answers were tangled in the darkness, and as she pressed on, the glowing lights flickered, fading. The light engulfed Sarah, warm and bright, but she felt the shadows tugging at her like relentless hands grasping for a lifeline. She stumbled forward, her breath coming in labored gasps as her heart raced. She felt the warmth recede behind her, the darkness creeping in, waiting for another chance to snatch her back. Where are you, Jake? She pleaded, her voice barely a murmur, barely strong enough to overcome the oppressive weight of despair. She squinted into the light, trying to focus, trying to make sense of the swirling forms that danced in ethereal rhythms. Each light pulsed softly, calling to her with a sweet, haunting melody. They flickered, ethereal stories hanging in the air, fragile but enticing. But as she reached for one, it dimmed, flickering as if warning her of a hidden danger. No, please don't go. The shadows lingered just outside the light's embrace. They felt alive, relentless creatures prowling waiting. Each pulse of panic shot through her. The memory of the girl, her brave eyes, her sacrifice. Sarah choked back a sob. She couldn't give in. Not now. Jake! She cried out again, her voice cracking. The echo of her own desperation wrapped around her, drowning out the whispers in the air. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the swirling lights, a boy, small and glowing. It was Jake. She could feel it, the energy radiating off him like a lighthouse in a storm. "Mom!" he called, his voice like music, filled with joy and heartbreak. "I'm here." Relief rushed through her, but it mingled with terror as she caught sight of the darkness creeping ever closer. It wasn't just shadows anymore. It had taken a sinister shape, twisted, gnarled limbs reaching out of the dark, desperately clawing for Jake. "No, stay back." She reached out, trying to bridge the gap between them. Their fingers stretched toward each other, but the void between was suffocating, threatening to devour what they shared. The ground beneath her trembled, the flickering lights around Jake shuddering violently. "Mom! Help!" he cried, his voice tinged with panic. "Hold on." She pushed forward, the weight of the shadows clawing at her ankles, pooling like ink. She could almost feel the darkness whispering secrets to her, undulating promises of despair. "Please!" Jake shouted as a tentacle of shadows shot out, wrapping around his leg, pulling him down into the dark. Her heart dropped, terror mixing with adrenaline. Time was slipping away. "No!" Sarah screamed, launching herself forward, the glow around her heart bearing the weight of her desperation. She grabbed at the light, feeling its warmth pulsing through her fingers. It was the very thing that could chase the darkness away. She felt an almost electric shift, and suddenly the lights surged, brighter and more vibrant. With a primal scream, she tore through the frail borders of darkness that threatened to engulf her son. The shadows hissed around her, recoiling as the light grew fierce, flashing with a radiant intensity that forced them to retreat. "Mom!" Jake's voice was muffled now, echoing from somewhere deeper within the shadowy abyss. Sarah recoiled in horror, the realization hitting her: is she strong enough to face it? Did she have what it took to battle the darkness, to reclaim her son? Heart pounding, she steeled her resolve. Behind her, the laughter roared like thunder, a mocking chorus of the very darkness she was fighting against. "Not again," she muttered, gritting her teeth. With each step, she harnessed the light, pumping it full of love, a fierce determination to pull her son back from the brink of despair. The shadows lunged at her, but she fought through them, a warrior in the stillness of chaos. Love felt powerful, like an unyielding force. "Jake, I'm coming." But the darkness rippled around her, forming tendrils that stung against her skin and whispered fears in her ears. "Are you sure you want to face the truth?" it taunted, its voice a cold reminder of the stakes. Determined, she pressed on, fueled by her desperate need to save him, to save herself. But with every pulse of energy, the shadows also grew, darkening the edges of her resolve. As her vision started to blur, reality wavered. The lights blinked, their rhythm faltered, and she feared losing everything, losing him. The laughter intensified, echoing through the chaotic air, taunting her with promises of despair. What else would she have to sacrifice? What was waiting for her on the other side of this battle? The shadows swirled menacingly, their hunger palpable. As she edged closer to the brink of the dark abyss, the suffocating laughter filled her ears. There was no turning back now. Would the light be enough to save them both? Or would she find herself consumed in the shadows forever? Sarah pressed on, each ragged breath a testament to her resolve. The shadows twisted and writhed, seemingly alive, as they thickened around her. The once inviting light now felt like a fragile flame in a violent storm. She blinked through the chaos, desperate to keep her focus on Jake. "Mom!" His voice broke through her like glass shattering sharp, immediate, and full of terror. She could barely see him now. The shadows were thick, swallowing the light that tried to break through. Just a glimmer remained, flickering in the encroaching dark. "Hold on!" Sarah screamed again, lunging forward. Her body ached, every step a battle against the chill that wrapped around her thicker than fog, pulling her down. She felt herself being drawn toward the shadows, but she fought against the weight, pulling from deep inside her love for her son, hope that they could escape. "Please!" Jake's voice quivered, filled with fear. "Don't leave me!" The darkness answered with a low growl that echoed around them, a sound that reverberated right to her core. It felt alive, hungry, and it was ready to feast. Sarah felt a pulse of panic, her heart racing as she clawed at the ground, fighting back against the shadows that whispered curses of despair. "Jake, I'm coming!" Each word was a promise, a lifeline thrown amid the chaotic tide. With trembling hands, she reached for the last remnants of the light, feeling it surge within her like the heartbeat of the universe. Suddenly, shadows erupted from the ground, forming grotesque faces that leered at her. They twisted into shapes that were all too familiar, regretful eyes, voices of those she'd lost. "You could have saved us," they whispered, cold and taunting. "But you chose stop." She covered her ears, blocking out the memories. This wasn't about them, it was about Jake. "No!" Jake screamed, trapped in an abyss of black. The point where he stood glowed with a fragile brilliance, but the tendrils of gloom coiled tighter, pulling him down, further into despair. The fight had become desperate. With each flicker of light, the darkness swelled, a beast growing in strength with every ounce of fear she felt. The laughter returned, a cacophony that settled like a shroud around her. "You cannot save him," it mocked, bending reality. "You will lose yourself." Her legs felt heavy, and doubt seeped into her heart. Was she strong enough? But she pushed through no matter the torment. She had to keep moving. Her love for Jake became a shield, shimmering against the dark. "Jake!" She lunged again, arms outstretched, feeling the light flicker within her. She could almost wrap it around them both. Just a little closer. Sudden agony shot through her, shadowy fingers clawing at her skin like shards of ice. "You're too late," it hissed, the words dripping with malice. "No!" she yelled, a primal scream clawing its way out of her throat. She summoned every ounce of strength and surged forward. As her fingers grazed the last flicker of light around Jake, an explosion of brilliance shattered the shadows for an instant. But as the darkness twisted back, it unleashed a final surge, attempting to wrench Jake from her grasp. His terrified face, locked into a gaze filled with despair, struck her dead in the heart. "Mom, I can't hold on. Just trust me." Time felt suspended, every heartbeat a thunderous drum in her ears. But then the lights dimmed again. In that heartbeat, both the light and the dark became a blur. Where would she go now? No, the realization struck her. The truth hung in the shadows, enticing yet terrifying. "I will not let you take him." But with every ounce of her resolve, the shadows surged again, wrapping tightly around her chest. Unable to breathe, Sarah fought, but a growing sense of dread began to consume her. What was waiting on the other side of her decision? With a strangled cry, she felt the dark nearly take her. But before it could drag her down, there came another voice, sharper, clearer than the rest. It beckoned her, promising power. The choice loomed large. What would it cost to push through? What part of herself would she have to sacrifice? Just as she felt everything slip from her grasp, a flash brighter than the sun erupted. Could the light consume the darkness once and for all? And what kind of monster awaited if she plunged deeper? The brilliance engulfed Sarah, a wave of searing light that pushed back the shadows with a monumental force. It felt like an eternity wrapped in energy, blinding and bright, but a part of her recoiled. If she grasped this power, would it come with a cost too steep to pay? "Sarah." The urgency in Jake's voice grounded her, reminding her of the desperate situation. She focused on him through the blinding flash, her heart screaming for clarity. "Stay with me, Mom." In that moment, clarity pierced the confusion. She realized this was her chance not just to save Jake, but to confront the darkness itself. She let the light swell inside her, inviting it to grow, to consume the fears that had taken root over the years. But as the light erupted, shadows convulsed and twisted, howling with fury. "You will pay." Their voices melded into a shrill crescendo, claws of despair reaching for her, attempting to claw her soul apart. "You will lose everything." "No," she shouted, battling against the chaos, the surge of light around her intensifying. It was hers to command. With newfound strength, she focused it ahead, directing the brilliance toward the shadows clutching at Jake. Suddenly, the figures of regret and despair flickered, their forms destabilizing as the light surged. Sarah felt exhilarated, power coursing through her veins. But then reality twisted, unraveling at the seams. Something cold brushed against her cheek. An icy whisper threaded through her thoughts. "What will you sacrifice?" She gritted her teeth, clenching her fists around the brightness. The darkness shifted uneasily, its hold on Jake faltering as though sensing its impending defeat. "I will not give in," Sarah screamed, her voice trembling with conviction that echoed louder than the shadow's sinister mockery. "Jake needs me." But even as the shadows receded, she felt a sinister tug dragging her back, a familiarity that came cloaked in sorrow. Faces blurred in front of her, memories long washed away. Each glimpse revealed a specter of someone she had lost the price they had paid. "Mom, help me." Jake's cry was a dagger that cut through her resolve, forcing her to look back. He was fading, his glow dimming under the weight of despair. "No." The light pulsed in response to her desperation, wrapping around her like a protective shield. But it demanded something in return. The cost loomed before her, an anguish debt she hadn't been ready to acknowledge. If she pressed on, what would she become? Suddenly, she felt the flicker of her hope countered by the darkness, each step curving into a spiraling void. What if in saving Jake, she lost herself entirely? "Mom!" The word shattered through the haze. Sarah rushed forward, pursuing the slivers of light, willing it to merge with the shadow clutching her son. She thrust herself into that space, the clash unleashing a deafening roar, light and dark colliding. Bright shards exploded in blinding bursts. She felt each fragment slicing through her. But attached to those shards were memories, wonders of laughter, joys overshadowed by fears. Would they all be lost? No. She screamed again, the agony of choice coiling around her heart. And just then, the shadows pulled back, retreating into thick, pulsating clouds. She felt raw, exposed, hovering on the brink. The darkness writhed, but it was faltering. As the silhouettes of lost loved ones faded back into obscurity, Sarah's heart quickened. She glimpsed a twisted version of herself navigating through terror, trapped in fear and regret. Fragments of memory coalesced, embodying her struggle, reinforcing her resolve. She could break the cycle. "Jake!" With renewed purpose, she surged forward, melding the light with the darkness. A final rush rippled through her, a sensation both painful and liberating. What awaited her now? And somewhere in the fold of shadows, a deeper, more insidious presence stirred. Would lighting the way expose something far worse than she had ever imagined? The darkness was not done yet. The moment Sarah and the darkness collided was like nature splitting apart at the seams. An explosion of sensation enveloped her, both blinding light and crushing despair merging in the chaos. She felt it all, the warmth of her son's glow, the cold chill of shadows trying to snuff it out. Everything hit her at once, twisting reality, dragging her deeper into the void. "Mom, please!" Jake's voice echoed, strained and distant, a haunting cry that pierced Sarah's heart. She reached for him, desperate fingers grasping into the swirling tempest around them. But the darkness was alive, an all-consuming force that fought back, coiling around her like icy vines, each touch an affront to her spirit. The shrieks of lost souls filled the air, wailing in terror, and Sarah knew instinctively that they were caught within the shadows, just like Jake. Panic surged through her. "I want to lose you," she yelled, forcing herself forward, step by agonizing step. The light pulsated in her chest, fighting valiantly as she pushed against the shadows wrapping around her legs. Each step sent waves of sharp pain radiating through her. They were memories clawing at her, promises of warmth and joy twisted into horrific forms. She saw flickers of her husband. The laughter of family gatherings morphed into sinister chuckles. "What do you want?" she gasped, her voice barely breaking through the cacophony. The shadows tightened their grip, answering her in a chorus of chilling laughter. "You reside in the darkness now," they hissed. "You've always belonged to us." "No." The denial sprang from deep within her, anchoring her to the light. But the more she resisted, the more the shadows morphed into a swirling mass of terror, whispering her insecurities back at her. "You will pay the price for this folly," they taunted, echoing her own fears. In desperation, she focused on Jake's light, its soft glow pushing against the darkness. But shadows swept toward it, like predators chasing prey. She felt her heart stutter. "Jake!" she screamed, the sound vibrating through the air, an echo of her soul. Sarah's resolve hardened. She couldn't let fear dictate her actions. She had to reclaim the light. With a primal roar, she unleashed every bit of the brightness within her. Brilliant energy exploded outward, illuminating the abyss like a solar flare. Bits of the darkness shrieked, sizzling away, but the shadows quickly regrouped, their anger palpable and potent. "Foolish girl," they hissed, transforming before her eyes. Within the murk, she began to see distorted agony's faces she'd buried in grief, twisted by spite and regret. Friends, family, all snatched away. Their tormented expressions nearly broke her resolve. "Join us. Reap what you've sown." But Sarah gritted her teeth, clenching her fists tight, focusing on the warmth of Jake's light. It was a beacon, her salvation. She could not falter. With every ounce of her being, she unleashed another surge of energy. The air crackled with electricity, and for an instant, she thought she could see the shadows stall, as if they, too, were unnerved. But then came the realization. A shadow, larger than the rest, loomed closer, its presence suffocating. It pulsed within the depths of the vortex, a lurking terror that sent a chill racing down her spine. This was not just any darkness. It was an ancient evil, waiting for her to falter, feeding off the despair that clung to her memories. "What do you desire?" A voice slithered through the chaos, deep and resonant. It wrapped itself around the darkness and her fear. "Jake." She breathed, barely a whisper, and the air chilled around her as the shadows inhaled her desperation. "Then sacrifice." The voice coiled back, teasing at her resolve. "Embrace the darkness you know you want to, or face the consequences." Her heart thundered. What was the consequence? What would she have to give up? With the shadows closing in, curling against her skin like smoke, she felt the stirrings of panic rise. Fear and defiance battled within her as she clung to the sliver of hope. But the unease loomed. Could she really fight a darkness this deep? "Mom, don't." Jake's plea broke through, sharp as a shard of glass. As Sarah turned back to the swirling shades, uncertainty washed over her in a wave, flooding her mind with dread. Was there still a chance, or had the shadows already won? A final flash illuminated the darkness, revealing something far more sinister lurking just beyond sight. What was she about to uncover? The shadows writhed and danced, pressing closer, a relentless tide of despair. Sarah's heart raced. The grip of fear clawed at her throat. She had to fight. For Jake. For herself. Drawing on the light burning within her, she let it swell, filling her with warmth and determination. "You won't win," she growled, pushing back against the encroaching gloom. In that moment, the darkness recoiled, hissing as the light surged forward, sweeping away the miasma choking their world. Pushed against the shadows, forcing them to loosen their grip on Jake. The air crackled with energy. "I will never give up on my son." But the shadows weren't without a master. The ancient evil lurking at the heart of the darkness stirred, erupting in a furious snarl. It morphed, twisting into a monstrous figure, half man, half-beast, eyes burning like coals in the night. You think love will save you? It roared, voice reverberating like thunder amidst the storm. You're just a fleeting candle in my dark eternity. Through the chaos, Sarah caught a glimpse of Jake's light flickering, the ghost of his familiar laughter almost drowned by the menacing laughter of the shadows. No, she cried again, her voice hoarse and frantic. I'm coming for you, baby. With renewed strength, she lunged forward, each step an act of defiance against the twisted creature that loomed. The memories of joy she'd shared with Jake flickered in her mind, a kaleidoscope of his laughter and love. Those moments became her weapon, transforming her into a force of unwavering grace. But just as she reached for her son, the monster lunged, monstrous claws slicing through the light, raking her skin and threatening to pull her into the abyss. Pain shot through her like fire, but as she fell, she felt a rush of energy ignite from within. No matter what you take, I will still fight, she roared, the light enveloping her, becoming a shield that drove back the shadows. With a burst of purpose, she grasped for Jake, her love driving her deeper into the heart of the darkness. Her fingers brushing his, the warmth piercing through despair, igniting a spark. Jake, hold on. We'll break free together. He looked up at her, eyes terrified but bright with a flicker of recognition. Mom! He shouted, reaching out, the bond between them stretching against the pull of the shadows. As their fingers touched, electricity surged through them, a shocking warmth that melted the icy grip of fear. Together, they radiated light, a beacon piercing the dark, pushing back the howling winds of despair that threatened to consume them. The monster screeched, twisting and writhing, as the light converged upon it like a tidal wave. Take back what you've stolen, Sarah yelled, her heart blazing with fierce love, fueled by the memories of all they had shared. The shadows shrieked in panic, shrinking and spiraling away, retreating teeming dread in their place. Warmth and light surrounded them, the shadowy being dissolved into a cloud of obsidian smoke, the awful visage fading, swept away by their unbreakable bond. Mom? Jake's voice was small. The darkness retreated, but he trembled, the remnants of cold curling at the edges of their sanctuary. Is it really over? Sarah knelt down, pulling him into her arms, relief washing over her like summer rain. We did it, Jake. You're safe. We're safe. Tears of joy hugged her cheeks as she looked down at him, the warmth in his eyes flooding her heart. But then Sarah noticed the fading glow around them, realizing the light could wane. We have to go home, she said urgently, pushing herself back, carrying Jake's small frame against the last whispers of smoke. Fast! Together, they raced towards the horizon, the remnants of light guiding them, chasing away the darkness behind. And as they stumbled out, back into their world, a familiar park, a gentle wind stirring leaves, the sun warming their skin, Sarah felt the thick veil of despair lift. The lives of Ketchikan felt altered, aware now of the shadows lurking at the edges. But the most comforting part was the small hand clutching hers, the laughter, echoing through the air. Mommy, are we safe now? Jake asked, his voice filled with innocent wonder. Always, she breathed, her heart swelling with overwhelming love. But we need to remember we must never forget the darkness. It exists, but we have the power to shine brighter. They walked on, the sun setting like a golden promise on the horizon, shadows receding, memories vivid and alive in the comfort of their embrace. Fear and sorrow lingered, yes, but love fortified them, an unbreakable bond that would keep darkness at bay. With every step, they felt lighter, as if they carried hope in their pockets, a spark that would light their way through whatever storms lay ahead. Together, they would face them all, the hidden fears and unspoken terrors, armed with the strongest weapon of all, each other. And just like that, with laughter weaving around them, they moved forward, ready to embrace whatever came next, together. Now, if you loved this conclusion and you want to dive deeper into more thrilling tales, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss a single exclusive story that's coming your way. Click that bell and select all notifications. Smash that like button right now to show your support. Your engagement keeps this channel alive. You absolutely must flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about the ending. I want to hear what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this thrilling conclusion. Thank you for it. Your support is what makes this community strong.